Hello, welcome to the Pearson EdXL International Advanced Subsidiary Syllabus Specifications coursework and modules of English Literature. We are here narrating the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, and today I would be having the narration of the dissertation, recital of the context and the setting of the novel. In perspectives of the context and the setting of the novel, I have concocted and fabricated and manipulated and plotted and s- schemed with the handy guides, consultations, and blended a lucid and succinct and brevity of lecture material pedagogy, and here we have pedagogy. um, in, in the novel The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn is set in a small town in the Mississippi River called St. Petersburg, which is the fictional name for the town of Hannibal, and where Twain spent much of his reminiscences and wonderful recollection pertaining to that of his puerile, momentous occasions and his childhood, infancy, and absurdly silly, and we can say that one immature and even the babyish and infantile and juvenile days, reminiscences, nostalgic reminiscences, and memorabilia. We have Twain wanted to write about boyhood out on the Mississippi River. Although the novel was published in 1884, the setting and the contextual background are, as Twain declares himself, 40 or 50 years earlier. Retrospection to that before the American Civil War of 1861 and 1865. We have, and at a time when the Mississippi River was an important means of communication. In this context, we would be talking about the setting. The setting has also been used in his earlier novel, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which is the sequel of The Adventures of the Huckleberry Finn, and where it is obvious that Twain was inspired by his childhood nostalgic remembrances and recollections. However, the adventures of Huckleberry Finn moves away from the atmosphere of serenity and tranquility and sobriety, and we can say the somberness and sublimity, to characterized by more emphasis on squalor and sordidness and muckiness and grimminess, grubbiness and dirtiness and filthiness and insalubrity, sleaziness and slovenliness, dilapidation of squalor and hypocrisy, which can be pertaining to the vivacious themes. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn allegorizes and satirizes Southern society. Society of the Southern America was predominantly based upon slavery and despised abolition. Southern society is shown to accept unquestioningly the principle of slavery, the tenets of slavery, the dogma and doctrine of slavery, the right to own other people as if they were a personal possessions, bought possessions because of the color of their skin and their racial prejudices. In this context, we would be devouring on a sound heard and elucidating the sound heard and highlighting the deformed conscience coming into concoction and collision. The conflict between what is morally right and what is legally wrong and enforced is at the heart of the novel. As seen in from Huck's internal perspectives and debates within himself, we would be researching the characters as well as the themes. The system of slavery has been long established part of the American society, traveled even lev- fueled by trade and with some countries in Western Europe, traders in black gold, as it was called, and alluded to what would travel to the shores of Africa, an undeveloped and largely uncivilized country, an unexplored country, with and Americans would capture as many black people, men and women and children, as possible, and they would transport them to the southern states of America mainly for sale as workers on the farms and plantations. Southern economy had starkly been dependent on agriculture, and cotton and tobacco had been the important predominant crops. Large numbers of workers were needed for these farms and plantations, and other black people had been used as domestic servants. A gulf developed with the frontiers folk between the northern and the southern states, and with the south taking offense at the northern states' denunciation of slavery, which was morally immoral. This was one of the prolific reasons, and or we can say the fruition and the foliage and creative and inventive and innovation and offsprings with the productive nature and foliage and fruitfulness and fruition for the outbreak of the American Civil War and rebellion being started, as well as there were apartheid from it, there were asunder fundamental and political reasons, and we have here the foremost among them, which is the most important salient features. We wish to create a unified country, that is the United States of America. How far does Huck accept these ideas throughout the novel? The system in which Huck grew up around the southern attitudes to their slaves denied that black people felt human emotions and maintained that they were a naive and childlike people who had been starved without southern protection. So these had southern protection would surpass and would outshine and outperform and excel, and this provided some moral justification for the maintenance of slavery. So these people had been treated prolifically as naive, lacking experience of knowledge and life, and willing to believe very easily that people would be telling you the truth, are always telling you the truth. This is the foremost principle on which these naive people had been enslaved, and Huck's perception towards these naive people. Huck's Twain's represent this issue through allegory and satire in Huck's personification and personage. Through Huck's eyes, we are allowing to represent the southern views and yet question their morality, his degraded principles and conscience. The Mississippi River used here as a symbolism. The river was a major artery of transport and communication because in the United States and many important areas as such, Twain's first-hand knowledge from the river came from his employment as a river pilot on the steamboat. The journey down the Mississippi River has been symbolic, seeing the literary terms functioning as well as a physical one, bringing Huck into contact with a variety of people along his shore and marking the development of his characters as he observes their lifestyle. In this context, what are the characters that Huck sympathizes and what are the other characters whom he condemns? The wide variety of characters in the novel represent the identity of the people who inhabited the southern states. Some are seen as major sympathetic characters, as victims of the unscrupulous epoch, but the majority of them are condemned by Twain for living an outdated code of conduct behavior with the misplaced belief in honor. We would be exploring and voyaging the themes, but the frontier's life, which had been associated with the indigenous population, at this time there were also large areas of land remaining hostile and unsettled. It was a time of the opening of the continent with the opportunity to choose land freely and live in, but frontiers folk had to be brave and hardy and adventurous. And Huck had all the qualities from being brave and hardy and adventuresome that the frontiers people folk possessed. Tom at the end of the novel indicates clearly already that the territory was a largely uncivilized and unsettled area, which had been there were adventures that had to be encountered amongst these indigenous populations of Indians. The loss of this freedom to roam and settle without restriction after the Civil War was twine that he had regretted. Changes in the southern society. There had been mass rapidity of transformation and industrialization and replacement of smaller settlements by the larger groups and flocks and swarms and crowds, and the movement from the river as a form of life and transport all began to occur following the end of the Civil War, and the cultural frontiers formed between the North and the South widened even further. But there was another deeper vision observed by Twain. The Northern he regarded as freely, notably and less restrictive, whereas the South seemed to him slower and more slower with its set ways. People in the North can dream, they do work. And the modern applications, perspectives in the novels, the themes and motifs, Hug distrusts civilization and its in the restrictive powers on individual freedom. In the novel, Twain represents us with a panoramic view of language, which can be used with the people for their own ideas, even to manipulate and to cheat. Farewell and adieu in this context. And interestingly and intriguingly, I would be thrilled and excited to carry out these vocations and prosperous and prospective projects. Thank you so much.